Oh, it's the Date Master. And yes, we're back again. We're back again. Make sure you like and you subscribe and hit the notification bell as you come in. Got a lot of different variety of videos you can choose from, but in this case here, we're gonna discuss poly relationships. I'm sure you are all familiar with polygamy, polygyny, polyandry, whereas female, male, female. I'm sorry, male, female, male, meaning is multiple guys sharing one woman. You have polygyny, which is the practice of one man sharing multiple women. If you notice when you're taking a look at these platforms, you see these women talking about they're in open relationships, which basically means it's a polyamorous. They're together in some form, shape, or fashion as a commitment, but they are still open to deal with other people. Now you got these poly relationships which look to be a little bit more firm in the dynamic. They have different archetypes. They have different setups. Again, they have, I guess, what you call triads. Again, I'm a novice to this. I'm sort of familiar, but I'm not too versed in it. But I, discuss what I know. But with that being said, you see these women on these platforms discussing open relationships versus being in a polygynous relationship or polygamous relationship, which in some form, shape, or fashion, you would think have some type of goal attached to it, some reasoning behind it, because it's an unorthodox in modern times. They have the history showing that back in the day, and when it was kings and rulers, et cetera, a certain status of men were able to have multiple women with no problem, because back then the patriarchy was a little bit more firm. It was not all of the different communities, the different sects. It wasn't all of these groups that had to be catered to depending on how much funding they had. You see, the LGBTQ has a lot of funding behind them. That's why you're able to see their message. You won't really see the polygamous message because there is not a lot of funding, because there's not a lot of unity. Because, again, it is frowned upon to be a man with multiple women and be public and the women be happy. It has to be some type of coercion or some type of intimidation factor present, because how would these women in America, the independent woman, the sexually liberated woman, the woman who can do whatever she would like with no consequence, or with consequences that will be met with aid, such as the government for public housing, Medicaid, WIC, food stamps, etc., their mistakes will be met with aid. So they tend to be a little bit more loose in their actions. So one would ask, how are these women, and multiple women at that, submitting to this one man? This is from the male, female, and female triad. This is when the man has the multiple women, but the women do not deal with any other man but him. See, notice again the other part of the conversation in which you see the women voice their perspectives on polygamy and cheating, etc., because they try to lump this together and they try to disown it or discredit it. But when you look at reality, a lot of women are engaging in a polygamous union themselves when they have babies out of wedlock, when they have babies with men who already have babies with other women, have children with other women. You're by default in a polygamous relationship. But what they would argue is that because sex is not involved, and this is what they would want you to think, but in most cases, the baby daddy always has access to the box. Because in reality, no man is really going to be present. She'll have, in some cases, depending on her look, she may be able to maintain men to a certain degree. But in a lot of cases, the women will just become ran through. This is why you hear men say baby mothers are recreational use only. I hear a lot. I've heard this phrase on many occasions, because it is a stereotype that they're easy. Just like to a lot of women, a hood guy is easy to them. You see the dichotomy here. But there has to be some type of intimidation factor if a man is able to garner two beautiful women under his wing and establish a relationship. There has to be something wrong here. This is what they will lead you to believe. But for the women that say this, if they have children by a man with multiple, with other children with other women, they're in a polygamous relationship, and vice versa. So they're basically telling you they're not going to condone or do anything that they're already doing, because they want you to be under the impression that they're not having sex with the baby daddy, when in a lot of cases they still are. So is this the new wave is the question. What quote unquote qualifies you as a man to be able to do this or to get into this arena? Because this is what a lot of women do. They try to grade you and say, well, he's eligible to do this. He can do this. He can have that. He can do this. He can say this if he meets these qualifications. Because if every man had this mindset, it'll be an issue. Again, the problems that you're running into with women can be solved very easily, simply by either walking away or establishing a firm standard across the board. Versus in this race, this is the standard. That's why you see different races, you see a different behavior of their women, because there is a different standard for the men that they have universally agreed upon to set. We as black men in the black community, we don't have that. And in other communities as well, you see their women in some cases, it's not just the black woman, it is multiple races of women in this land. One can say all to a certain degree. But what they'll do is try to grade you and say, okay, you make six figures, he has this going on, he's this, that, he can deal with two women. Okay, we will accept that. But even only a few would say this, because they feel they have the power to design how the relationship goes. They want you to be the wife, because they're already independent. They don't know how to come out of their independent mind state unless it's met with sheer dominance and a life-changing encounter. This is why you hear women say that conditional submission for the right man, I will. I mean, if I meet the right guy, I'll submit. If the benefit makes you again, this is basically saying in plain view that if the benefit is abundant, then I'll act like I'm going to go along with it until I get the benefit. Hence the divorce rate from the Jeff Bezos on down, the Bill Gates on down, the Tom Brady's on down. But let's play that game. Let's say you meet these, let's say you want to you want to get into a polygamous union. Can you handle that? Can you handle the two women? Do you know what you're doing? Because a lot of the time it is implied that it's just for men to have threesomes and, this, that, and the third. But truth be told, I see more women pushing for polyamorous relationships than the men. You see the memes and the videos, the reels on Instagram and Facebook about the women waking up and they just had a threesome. You hear women say, if we cheat, we can cheat together as long as she knows about it. Because she wants to size the woman up first. She wants to size her up to see, because a woman doesn't want those resources extracted and transferred to the new woman. So, hey, bring her around. Let me see how she move, and let me read her and make sure I'm out competing her, so you won't leave me for her. You see. But let's say you want to deal in this polyamorous or polygamous relationship. How do you go about that? Do you know what that really entails? You're really taking care of two women. Do you have the financial resources? Do you have the mental capacity to relate to these two women in a fashion that's pleasing to both and is unity? A lot of guys are having problems dealing with one woman, let alone multiple, but it'll be a weird psychological trick if it was much easier to deal with two women than just the one. Now think about that. And it'll simply be because you're operating from a place of dominance versus the monogamous relationship, which is pretty much a joke. It is an experiment that rarely works. It's kind of like those codes on Retail Me Not, and you're trying to get a discount and say 43% tried it today and it worked. It's something to that effect. So again, it's just it is a system that makes sure the money is measured. It's all about economics. Marrying one woman, because again, you can have women, you can have children. Just ask Nick Cannon. I think he's on baby number 12. Just ask NBA Youngboy. You can have multiple kids with multiple women, but yet you cannot marry them. You have to ask why that is. You have to ask why that is. Why can I have babies with multiple women and we act as if we're married, meaning I'm taking care of the homes, etc., taking care of the children, but I cannot legally marry them to transfer my wealth. So I have to do work. They do the workaround. But this new wave, again, I'm in these groups just by default being added. And I just pay attention to the post and I see women introducing themselves every day, all day. I'm such and such, young as 24, as old as 60. You have 60-year-old women seeking polygamous relationship, and you can tell that it's more so for sex, because what are you going to build? Are you going to have children? Absolutely not. You're 60. So this is just entertainment. This is sexual entertainment, trying something new, because for the last 60 years, 24 years for the women who get exposed early, for whatever year they started having sex, they had so much of it, it became boring. They have to go to the next level, the gateway. This is what they're not discussing. A lot of them will lead you to believe it is about unity and just doing. They don't discuss any goals. It's more so sexual entertainment, because the regular old way has become boring. We need a friend. We need a new partner. We need something to spice things up. And at the very moment you need those things, depending on what those things are, your relationship could be hitting its expiration date. And you have to introduce new things that are outside of the two of you. Again, what works for this person may not work for this person. But you guys let me know what you think. Is poly relationships a new wave? And for the women that I see looking for two men, again, what does that look like? We all know. But make sure you like, comment, subscribe, comment on the video, share the video, hit that notification bell. It's the Date Master.